All right, so let's go ahead and dive into it. Today we have Flo from University of Ascension in Paraguay going to present on some nice stuff about HLAs and her work. But before that, I'll give the regular updates. Regular papers. Last paper was this a few weeks ago that came out finally, a mitochondrial paper. There's the part two of this that has been accepted, the review that's a bunch of you are on, that should be published soon, or online soon, I should say. So stay tuned for that. And been mentioning this now every week. We're trying to organize an in-person meeting in summer 24, but it's going to be covering anything about regulatory RNAs, meaning microRNAs or non-coding RNAs or anything that's regulatory type RNA, but from infectious disease to space. So it's sort of our agenda here. But we're looking for sponsors and some potential sponsors already, maybe brewing. So if you guys know of any other sponsors, please let me know so we can reach out to them. Okay, so let's just dive into the news. In the US, you might have heard there's now free COVID tests as of September 25th. You can sign up against the Biden administration has decided to give free COVID tests again for your family. So if you want to take advantage of that on September 25th, go to covid.gov/tests and sign up. Unfortunately, for other countries, I'm sorry, you won't be able to get your free test from us, but maybe your country will have something that, and that's possibly due to because, as we know, the people are expecting, there has been an increase in hospitalizations and increase in cases of wastewater has been going up for COVID cases, and that's all around the world. But one good thing is that the cases of hospitalizations have been up since March, or the increase has been relevant to or related to what it was in mid-March. But it's still not overall low compared to like the Omicron wave we had back in 2022 or 21-22 too. So that's the good news. And some other parts, that people are getting sick now with COVID is a little different symptoms. This is an article on that if you want to read about it. Usually now with the new variants, it seems like it's starting with the sore throat. That's very different from other types of colds that you might have. And then so when the congestion happens, as they describe it here in this article, that your throat gets better, but then people then experience some of the typical things that have been happening, like headaches, fatigue, muscle chills, and so on. The loss of senses taste has been greatly reduced with these variants as the original variant was. And the whole point of this article was, although there seems to be a lot milder symptoms, these variants, long COVID is still around, as they finally say in this end of the article. And reinfections can bring risks of long COVID equally, as most of you know. So, well, good news and bad news. So free tests. I'll show you some of the cases. The cases were waste number, wastewater data shows that potentially in the U.S. things are starting to plateau, as we discussed last week too. All right, so some papers. This paper was brought to my attention by Kevin. Thanks, Kevin. So this was a paper that just came out, a large GWAS study they did in Italy. The last author is Giuseppe Ramuzzi. Kevin suggested we try to invite him to give a talk here about this paper. We'll see what we can do. But it was interesting because they did a large GWAS study in that population, and they found that the Neanderthal haplotype is like a major genetic risk for severe COVID. And they go into these a Manhattan plot of the different areas in the chromosome and the different haplotype groups, and then they pinpointed basically in this chromosome region from the patient samples they were getting from the Italian population. I forget what region in Italy it was, but from there they're able to see that basically the gene variant was associated more with a severe case of COVID, which was interesting to read. Now I don't know how that relates with mitochondrial hepatitis, but Doug would have to read this paper and tell us. So maybe something's related to that. Yeah, thanks, Doug. But it was interesting to see that. So people should maybe want to take a look at this paper. There's this other paper that came out in Cell that I think I emailed a few folks that's very relevant to our inflammation paper that we're getting ready to resubmit. It's a very nice paper. I mean, and they looked at basically SARS-CoV-2 variant evolution across from Alpha to Omicron to different variants of Omicron. As they discussed in the paper here, they said like BA.1 to BA.5, I think they went to. And what they basically saw is that there was basically a shift in innate immune response, adaptive response over the different variants. And they saw an overall suppression of innate immune response. One thing which contradicts what we say in our paper that we're getting ready. But the reason I bring this up too is it's a nice paper, it's well done, but they only did it in vitro cell lines, like Calu-3 cell lines. They focused on, they looked at some other cell lines too, as I was looking over this paper this morning. I think they also looked at Vera cells, and I forget what other cells they did, but other people might have already seen this paper. One thing is I put the link for the open access version is here, but they also have this the authors made this summary of their paper with figures in this link here. So if you wanted to read the author's summary, because this when you go on Cell, this is behind the paywall if you don't have access to your university's journal websites. But basically what they talk about here is, here's the kind of the experimental description of the RNA-seq data they did with Calu cell lines over different variants and different time points of infection. And they did proteomics, so this is like the linking different protein interactions from different immune factors together, so people can take a look at this and see how that relates. And this is sort of a track here, looking at the variants of concern over time, comparing adaptive and immune responses over the different regions, ORF regions, and other responses you see here. One thing here from this paper too, that this is another figure from the paper, looked at innate inflammatory responses were the most divergent, they said. So again, but they're saying it's suppressed, but I think that's the one thing we have to keep in mind is that a lot of these in vitro studies, they missed the whole, in my opinion, they missed the whole entire immune system, which in our paper that we'll submit soon, and a lot of people here are involved with it, we had multiple different sources, and we also have the Omicron data in there that we see the constant conserved upregulation of innate immune response. So we have to address, although they're doing an in vitro study here, they might be missing the entire picture. I don't know if other people have comments on this too, but we can keep going. But this one plot here is showing a nice antigenic shift, they're saying, between the different Omicron variants between immune and interferon stimulation. But it's well done paper, but again, it's only in vitro data, no patient data. And I think the opposite response they see to us, we have to address. And I don't want to discredit these guys because they did a nice work here, but the in vitro model might be missing a lot of that immune interaction, in my opinion, that you need the whole host as there to show. Some long COVID news, not COVID news, but some long COVID news. This is a nice little interview article they did with you're probably familiar with Ziad Ali's work. He's done a lot of nice long COVID work, but it's kind of a summary about his work he's done, and then like the opinions about long COVID and reinfections. And basically, one thing that I think most people, everyone here is probably aware of, but a lot of people not looking at long COVID and doing the research, they don't realize that for every infection is, you're basically rolling the dice again and having the same chance of getting long COVID. Granted, now it seems like the percentage of long COVID is reduced from, originally before the vaccination, the original strain was 30% to 40%, some people said. But now the estimates are 5 to 10% chance of you getting long COVID. But the chance of reinfections, you might not get it the first time, but you can get it the second time. That's basically what they were saying in the article. And if you already have long COVID, it could, when you get COVID again, the chances of you getting long COVID symptoms worsening could, from his work and other people's work, can be further pushed along. There's a nice paper here that came out this is an article. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Can I interrupt quickly? Yeah. In that last paper, did they expound any on how the new variants, long COVID, might be, people might be observing a different constellation of symptoms?
You talking about the Cell paper?
Well, actually, I'm not sure if it's the Cell paper or not.
You're talking about the article. Okay, yeah, this is just like an interview article he was talking about. So it wasn't
Oh,
really.
okay. So he doesn't discuss how new variants, there might be a shift in the constellation of symptoms for long COVID then?
No, I mean, they didn't ask him about that, but yeah, that definitely is. I think so.
Yeah,
Something
with the,
as you say, yeah,
I mean, with the change of acute symptoms, we might expect a change in long COVID as well. I mean, it's hard to assess with people that maybe have been infected multiple times, but I've been waiting for an article on that, and there hasn't been one yet. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, right now I don't know. Yeah, we don't have an answer to what you're saying, but it's important. No, yeah, I agree.
yep.
Yeah, so this is talking about this article talking about this paper talking about how early convalescent plasma treatments, which has been going on for a while, can potentially uh, reduce chemokine cytokine levels. And this is about this paper here. So this paper showed that the early convalescent plasma treatment or therapies can actually reduce. They looked at different factors like IL-6 and some of the different ILs there, different interleukins and interferons. But
I,
the one thing
I
about this
just
study,
tweeted this article.
oh,
I just tweeted this article as the first plasma donor in the country and the country's first spokesperson for the summer 2020 on collecting plasma. I've been pushing to try this for ages as a treatment and as a prophylactic.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it seems promising and it seems definitely good. I mean, the one thing about this study, I think some of their plots and statistics might have there should be more studies done. That's what I'll say, because this study, I think there's some caveats when you look at the data and the paper in this that you might want to want people want to confirm what they've done. But overall, this seems to be promising. We'll leave it at that. And this is another paper that came out looking at vaccinations, how this might sort of address Kevin's thing, but it's about vaccinations and how vaccinations can reduce long COVID symptoms potentially. But in this paper, they looked at one or two vaccinations. So this is from the early cohort of people. So they didn't look at the boosters or anything else here. So basically, yeah, go ahead.
Darshan, I just tweeted this yesterday. Akiko had sent it to me. I'm publishing a paper with Akiko Osaki is the lead PI and Harlan Krumholz, and it's being published through Yale in the next few weeks on basically this exact thing. So,
no, yeah, we'll keep an eye out for it. Thanks.
but with the immunological profiles.
Yeah, send it to us when it's out.
I will.
Thank you. So okay, so so this paper here, they go into they look at certain factors of immune response and inflammation. So it sounds like Diana's paper with Akiko is going to be more universal, robust. But here, basically, what they show is that the COVID-19 vaccination, the post-COVID, reduces the number of symptoms. They categorized by questionnaires to the participants. They also saw that that reduces inflammation markers, and some figures from here looking at some of the inflammation, the cytokines and interleukin factors. And then also then they say one thing that was interesting in this paper is that with the vaccine, they looked at the viral products like the nuclear capsid or the spike, that's left over after the virus is in. It didn't reduce those levels. So the virus particles were about the same with or without vaccination, which is interesting. And this is what they say here: the viral reservoir is not cleared by one or two vaccines. This may persist. So that part was interesting because I've never seen data that show that if the vaccine make any difference with the viral reservoirs or the viral products that are left behind. What does that mean? I don't know. Maybe some people think that could attribute to long COVID symptoms and so on. But this is a paper here that you could read about that. So I'm trying to go quickly so I give Flo a chance to give her a nice presentation. This is just the variants. As we probably know, it's the XBB, FL, and the AG.5 is in the US. And most places in the world have the same distribution from what I've been hearing. So when you look at the wastewater in the US, you can see that plateau is happening here nationally. You can see that. depending on the region you are, like I'm in Middlesex, so you see this oscillatory up and down. It was going down last week, but now it came back up and now it's plateauing like the rest of the nation. What BioBot has done now is showing under, if you go to your certain county, you can see your county wastewater, and also shows the dotted line is the national wastewater trend to see how you compare. And the variant distribution is here, which is not surprising. And as we know, that EG.5 is sort of the dominant one, but sort of a variant soup here because of the FL here that seems to be competing pretty well against it. The BA 2.8.6, the one that was people were worried about, which had all those 30 different mutations, that was very divergent from everything else, is still very low and not showing up at not too many places. So that's a good thing, probably. This is kind of a phylogenetic tree where the variants happening. And overall, this is, as we said, the hospitalizations in the US is going up. Most other places are not reporting hospitalizations very well. So we don't know that. And the case numbers aren't reliable at all because that, as we know, has gone out the window from actually tracking. So we looked at patient ICUs and hospitals mentioned the wastewater. I think this is the most reliable resource. But that's it. I think that'll be it for this week.